Warning, censorship. Warning, censorship. Warning, censorship.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Rebel News live stream on this, a Tuesday, November 9th, 2021. I'm David Menzies, and my co-host, let me tell you about my co-host. In this week of remembrance, she is unforgettable. She is the she-devil with a sword. She is the Khaleesi of Northern Alberta. She is Sheila Gunn Reid. How you doing there, Sheila?
David, one of these days you're just going to blow the knot on your tie when you're introducing me. Because you just really put your all into it. Like all your cardiovascular capacity is just pushed out the top of your body. And I appreciate it. It is the pep talk every woman needs in her day. So I thank you so much for that.
Oh, it is always a pleasure. You know, you are, as the song goes, one of my favorite things. Not that I'm calling you a thing, but you know what I'm trying to say. And Sheila, and I got to tell you, I can't remember I passed this on to you. I was at a protest. The Democracy Fund's Dr. Julie Paness was there on Sunday, beautiful Sunday in November at Nathan Phillips Square. John Tory thankfully did not sick the goon squad on the protesters, you know, because there were no, we weren't members of Hamas and we weren't supporting the Tamil Tigers. So, the Tory approved protesters. And I have to tell you, a lot of people came up and said that they just love the Rebel News live stream on noon with you and I. And I'm going to do the Barry Horowitz pat on the back because they didn't mention anyone else, although they would have mentioned Ezra if Ezra was still doing it, but he has far more important things to do. So I just wanted to pass that along. And, I have such a great time doing it, so I guess it rubs off on the audience. And I want to thank that audience out there, A, for watching, B, for donating. You are the best of the best.
It's true. We really do have the best people, and it is interesting to hear that you are encountering people out there in your Rebel News travels that remark about me, because it's all I ever hear about. Did David get his bottle of whiskey? I'll go to a protest at the legislature. I go to a protest in Bonnyville, Alberta, like 2.5 hours outside of Edmonton, and they're like, "Hey, Sheila, did David ever get his whiskey?" And I'm like, okay, well, I'm fine. I drove 2 hours to see you, but it's okay. Yeah, we'll talk about David's whiskey. That's fine and dandy.
Sheila, it came up again and again on Sundays. And I want to say something. I mean, for those who don't know what we're talking about, I got shorted a bottle of scotch at the LCBO. They agreed to give it to me, and then they changed their minds. It looks like, folks, I can't believe it. It looks like it's going to litigation. And we sent out, well, Sheila, we've sent out a demand letter more than a month ago. They haven't responded. I mean, do they think that they are above the justice system? Well, they probably do. And, it is really, really such an unimportant story. A $115 bottle of scotch that they ripped me off of. But here's the thing, Sheila, I think it touches, Joe and Jane consumer in a very personal way. That in most of Canada, thank God it's not the case in Alberta since the 90s, we have government-sanctioned liquor monopolies. So they're controlling the warehousing of it. They're controlling what you can buy. My favorite scotch is long gone, Black Bull. They say, well, it's your way or the highway. Actually, it's not even the highway anymore, Sheila. I can't go to Buffalo, can't get over the bloody bridge because I'm not double jabbed. And who wants to get a $200 plus test coming back the other way? So I think it's just the grotesque injustice that government is in a role in which the private sector should be in. Yeah, regulate the business government, tax the product. I get that. But for you to be retailers and warehousers and importers of alcohol, and then to justify it by saying social responsibility, Sheila, the idea that we can't entrust such a potentially deadly substance in the hands of the private sector, and yet where is the social responsibility when they screw up? They just shrug and they go, we'll try better, whether it's shorting somebody, whether it's selling selling to minors. However, in the private sector here in Ontario, where convenience stores can sell tobacco, it's basically I think it's either 2 or 3 strikes you're out if you sell to minors, and that ends your livelihood. So where's the social it is a grotesque miscarriage, I think, of justice and what government's role is. And I think that resonates with people who want to be free of liquor and, I might add, lottery tyranny. They want the private sector to sell and retail these goods. The government can regulate and tax it. That's fine. And it'll never change in this province, Sheila.
Yeah, for Albertans, we look upon what's happening to you as the same way we would look upon an exotic animal at the zoo. Like, it is so foreign that you have these government workers making like government benefits to just be, frankly, and this is no offense to the people who do the work, unskilled retail workers. It's not a government wage kind of job. But secondarily, for the government to be stealing jobs and entrepreneurial dreams from the private sector while literally simultaneously stealing from the common man, that's you, David Menzies. The story has everything I dislike about big government. It's happening to you in the form of, also shocking to me, $115 bottle of whiskey. I cannot believe that you drink expensive whiskey. I know you well, David Menzies. You circle how much you spend on the back of the cards you give your wife to prove to her how much money you've spent. You are excessively cheap.
You remembered that, eh?
And yet you drink expensive whiskey. You are a conundrum, David Menzies.
On that note, when I go and I buy one of those, I think it's papyrus cards, really fancy dance, you find them at the upscale gift stores and what have you, in Indigo, and I'm paying $7.95 for that card. Oh, you better believe it, baby. I'm circling that. I don't want that to go unnoticed. And by the way, let's be honest. Let's not kid the kidders, as they say on the Midway. And I put this out to you folks. When you're given a greeting card, whether it's a Christmas card, a birthday card, an anniversary card, I know human nature. I know, even though most of you won't admit it publicly, but you can put it under an anonymous pen name when you do the chats. The first thing you do, because I do it, is I flip the card backwards and I look for that. Oh, no, you are. Sheila, I've never known you to tell a fib. You are lying. You are lying like a rug on this one.
No, I don't. I shake it to see if a gift card falls out. That's what I do. I don't flip it over.
How is that any better?
Or lottery tickets. Like, put some lottery tickets in there. Give me 5 minutes of scratching a bingo for fun.
Sheila, unless it's immediate family that you're cohabitating with, the worst gift in the world is a lottery ticket. It's lose-lose, because if you give the person...
I love getting lottery tickets.
Oh, yeah, of course you do, because you want to be a millionaire overnight, but that's my point. Say I gave you a lottery ticket, and it's a dud. It's just a piece of worthless paper. That's not much of a gift. Say your numbers come in, and you got $10 million. How do you think I feel now? I went, oh my God, Sheila can retire in the Caribbean overnight and I'm still schlepping away. So it is the worst gift in the history of mankind. Don't give lottery tickets.
No, give lottery tickets, especially to me. David, if you gave me a lottery ticket and I won $10 million, you know what I would do? I would buy you an actual vehicle instead of that little electric abomination that you drive. That's the first thing I would do. I'd be like, David, we're going. Let's get you a Raptor. Let's get you something reasonable. That's what I would do if I won some money. But people who know me know that I like the idea of scratching lottery tickets, but I am cheap when it comes to lottery tickets. Like, I don't like giving the lottery commission money. I just don't like doing that. And so I just kind of feel like gambling is a waste of my money. I think I ever played the VLTs, like the video lottery terminals, maybe twice in my life. And so I'm cheap when it comes to that. So it brings me a lot of joy to get one of those scratch and win lottery tickets in my card, especially the ones that come out around March, because the scratch and win leprechauns look Exactly like my husband when he wears a beard. Exactly. Little red hair, little guy, puffy beard, little red beard that doesn't grow in very well. He's the scratch and win lottery ticket leprechaun, and so it's that extra joy that I get.
Well, I just want to say to Mr. Producer, please archive this footage. You had Sheila Gunn Reid on a live internet broadcast saying she will give me a Ford Raptor if she wins the lottery. By the way, you really kind of screwed yourself, Sheila. You didn't mention how much of a prize you need. So a Raptor.
No, I said if I win like $10 million.
Oh, did you? That. Okay, all right then. So 10 million is a benchmark because a Raptor. And by the way, can you please, if you do win the 10 million, and I hope you do, can you wait till next year to buy the Raptor? Because that's when the Raptor R comes out. But you know what? That's a good question to our audience. What is your dream vehicle? If you must know, Sheila, my dream vehicle, and there's only 5 left for sales. In Indiana, there was a company called Fiberglass Freaks. They make replica Batmobiles. They have 5 performance Batmobiles left. I mean, Ferraris, Lamborghinis, McLarens, come on, dime a dozen. But I'm telling you, you drive down the highway in a Batmobile, and I'm talking the 1960s George Barris Batmobile. That's my dream vehicle. $300,000 US plus taxes, of course. Sheila, there you go. Look at that.
Oh my God.
Imagine, Sheila, you and I, and you know, we'll spring a few $100 extra bucks for a Batman and Robin costume. Naturally, I'll be Batman. You know, when you look at Robin's costume, red tunic, green short shorts, yellow cape. I mean, say it loud, say it proud, Boy Wonder. But anyways, could you imagine us driving down the highway in that gorgeous design masterpiece?
You win the lottery.
Pardon me?
I hope you win the lottery. That's the perfect David Menzies impulse buy. It is. Like it just is. For me, if I won the lottery, I would skip off to the dealership and buy myself the new Ford Bronco in yellow and black. Get some oversized tires. That's my current dream car of the day. But but the Bronco just came out onto the market, so I'm sort of going to wait a couple years because usually in the first model run, that's when all the problems manifest themselves. So, and also like you, I'm kind of frugal when it comes to these sorts of things. So I like somebody else to pay for the depreciation, and then I sneak in and scoop up the good deal. So that's what I would do. It's the yellow and black Ford Bronco. Yes.
Wow.
But yes.
Look at that. You know what? But it's good that you wait for that reason. They get the kinks out. And the other reason, too, Sheila, I wouldn't be surprised if Ford comes out with a off-road, like a really juiced up Bronco, kind of like, you know, the Jeep Rubicon. I mean, that's what it's meant to compete with, the Jeep Wrangler. So that's, you know, that's wise thinking on your part. And by the way, to the audience, what is your dream vehicle? If money were no object, what would you buy? That's what I want to know. So there you go.
I like how if money were no object, I would buy like a $60,000 vehicle. Like I'm just like a practical person. If I had all the money in the world, I would buy a vehicle worth $60,000, then take it to the custom shop and get a new bumper, maybe some roof racks, and some oversized tires and some cool rims. That's what I would do. I'm a practical lady.
I got to tell you, there might be some surprising choices because I remember there was a poll. It was the top 10 dream vehicles of Canadians. This is more than 15 years ago was when I was actually writing about cars. And in the top 10, and I might have been even in the top 3, was the Dodge Caravan. Now listen, I'm a defender of the
earth?
I mean, have Canadians forgotten how to dream when it comes to a set of wheels? I'm not knocking the Caravan. You know, the bang for the buck for a minivan is absolutely exceptional.
No.
Well, no. Yes, it is. You know, and I will defend the minivan, especially the Uber minivan, which is the Honda Odyssey, which is so spacious yet drives like an Accord. But A dream vehicle if money's no object? Come on. So let's hear some inspired choices, and maybe it's some vintage stuff, things that aren't bought. One of the things I would buy with my $10 million, just to spite Sheila Gunn Reid, I would go into the used classic market and get a Subaru Brat, exactly like the Subaru Brat Sheila once owned, and foolishly gave away.
I didn't give it away.
You gave it away.
I flipped it. Now, if we're talking vintage vehicles that I would get, and I know we're way off course. We're 15 minutes in and we haven't even talked about what we're doing here. But sometimes it's fun to have some fun because we are in like the sausage maker of news all the time. And I'm sure for our people at home, some of you complain that we don't get to the news fast enough. But some of you are like, yeah, you know, we hear bad news all the time. Let's talk about things that are fun. I would get the AMC wagon. Again, sort of in mustard yellow with the wood panel. Oh, wood panel with oversized truck tires, the light truck tires. That's a beautiful vehicle. And, you know, sometimes you see them pop up on Facebook Marketplace, and I look at my husband and he just shakes his head no at me. But someday, the 80 to 81-ish AMC wagon, so nice.
And you know what?
No, the Eagle wagon. Eagle wagon. You got to get the Eagle wagon. So
and Sheila,
AMC,
in that regard, they were ahead of the curve, in terms of coming out with four-wheel or all-wheel drive vehicles. I guess the genesis of what would come a decade later, the SUV boom, they just didn't survive. But if I had to buy a vintage AMC vehicle, and I'm only choosing it on two reasons. One, it's a muscle car, and secondly, it's the name. It is the AMC Rebel. And if Mr. Producer can find that, it's a little garish, I'll admit, but man, if you're part of Rebel News, you've got to drive a Rebel vehicle. And there's a look at that.
Yeah. Who's behind the wheel? Evil Knievel?
It really looks like somebody took a Dodge Valiant to the shop and did the the tricking up thing to it. But I should mention
Super Dave's car.
Pardon me? Oh, sorry. And the Rebel name does live on. It's a trim of the Ram pickup truck. There is a Rebel edition. Although I don't know how it stands out from all the other Rams. And the Ram you really want to get is the T-Rex, right? That 700 horsepower motor.
My husband's in the market for a Longhorn right now. That's what he replaces his Longhorn every couple of years, and that's the one that he wants. It's like driving around a big fancy cowboy boot. Once you get inside, you're like, whoa, what's all the leather happening in here? Like, it's a lot. It's a lot.
Sheila,
it's very
I didn't know your husband was in the market. Just last week, I sold my Ford Fusion plug-in hybrid. I could have arranged, passage out to Alberta via CN Rail or something. So he missed a great deal. You snooze, you lose.
Him right off the rig. Yeah, laugh him right off the rig. Okay. We should tell everybody what we're doing here now that it's Car Talk with Sheila and David is over. This is the Rebel News. I know, we'll get to the news part. Daily live stream. Used to just be hosted, as David alluded to, by the Big Boss Man on Friday. But, he's got a company to run. And so David and I, take care of Tuesdays and Thursdays. I also do the show on Monday with Adam, where we mostly talk about Western-focused issues. And then our other talent fill in the other 2 days. And it used to be a great chance for you to see sort of rebels in their natural environment, where you get to see a little bit more of their personalities, but also to talk about the news of the day as the news changed, because during the pandemic, the restrictions are changing day by day. Who even knows what tomorrow will bring? And some of the best ways to talk about those issues was as they happened, instead of in a fully produced video that might actually be stale by the time we get it out to you. So we would sit down, we would do the live stream, and we would take super chats on YouTube, which was a way for you to donate to the work that we do. But then YouTube, once Biden got elected, they didn't even have to pretend anymore. So they completely demonetized us, along with several other conservative channels. But we have 1.5 million YouTube subscribers, and we don't want to abandon you. We value each and every one of you. So we start off the show on YouTube while simultaneously broadcasting on Odyssey, Super U, and Rumble. 3 platforms that I don't know if they're conservative or not, and I really don't care as long as they let us be conservative and have our opinions. And each one of those platforms gives you the ability to support the work that we do through a Rumble rant, Odyssey hyperchats, and Super U shouts. And you can tip us as a creator there. But the reason we migrate off YouTube is because there will come a time where we have a conversation about things that YouTube figures you at home should not be entitled to hear. And these are true facts. These are things that are published in medical journals, or, we can't even tell you what another person said about a certain issue, because that would be considered questioning the science, and they'll nuke our YouTube channel, cutting us off from 1.5 million valued subscribers. So we'll start off on YouTube, but then we don't want to say goodbye to you if you're on YouTube. We want to say, see you in a minute over on one of the other platforms. So that is what we're doing here today. We will eventually talk about the news, but we'll start off on YouTube and end up on one of the other platforms. So hopefully you stick with us.
And those are indeed the true facts, as opposed to the 1994 Arnold Schwarzenegger movie True Lies, which they never made a sequel to, oddly, Sheila. And it's odd because it was one of the biggest grossing films of the year that year. You know what my theory is? I don't think you could make a sequel to that movie with cancel culture and political correctness,
right,
and identity politics being the way it was, because it actually depicted the terrorist as, Islamofascist. I know that sounds like a crazy concept.
Same thing with Back to the Future. Back to the Future, like the most vanilla action movie ever made. Same thing. Couldn't depict anybody as, one of a marginalized group, I guess, is how they say it now.
Yeah. Well, Sheila, thank you for going through the regulations. Well, they're not regulations, but the protocol and the etiquette for
restrictions. Let's call them restrictions.
Yeah, that sounds like a government YouTube channel. Here are the regulations for contributing.
What's the difference?
Misinformation policies. There you go.
These are restrictions. YouTube is a government unto itself. It's a big tech oligarchy, and these are their government restrictions. And if you want to exist in their public square, you have to shut up, just like North Korea.
100%. And, why don't we get right to Adam Seuss? He did a petition drop-off to, look at this, an elected MLA who was actually happy to see somebody bearing a Rebel News mic flash. Let's check out Adam's work.
The politicians who have been hesitant to call for our flag to be raised are the same who have been inactive on Indigenous issues that are unfolding this very day. Justin Trudeau is more likely to pause for a photo op than he is to dare help a single Indigenous person.
They invited you.
We need change. We need to honor those who are suffering and to honor those soldiers who have suffered for our freedom. We can do both. We are asking our politicians to be accountable and to actually take action to help Indigenous communities. And furthermore, we're asking Canadians to help honor soldiers by raising our flags across this great nation. We're asking you to go to raiseourflag.ca.
We continue to work very closely with partners, with Indigenous peoples, with communities across the country. There is an understanding of how important it is to be able to lower the flags on Remembrance Day to mark our veterans, to mark people including Indigenous peoples who've stepped up to fight for Canadian values and paid the ultimate sacrifice. And I am confident that the conversations with Indigenous leadership on making sure we are able to lower the flags once again on November 11th will come at the right solution.
Ever since we launched our RaiseOurFlag.ca video, we have seen numerous outlets across this country picking up on the story, calling for flags to be raised in honor of veterans who have paid the ultimate price. There's also been a call for unified action in support of Indigenous community beyond simple signs and virtue signaling. Things need to be done for those communities. Well, to date, we have had some good news, and it seems that Justin Trudeau has suggested that the flags will likely be raised by Remembrance Day. Adam Sos here for Rebel News, and we are outside of the office of Prasad Panda. He is the Calgary Edgemont constituent member of the Legislative Assembly, and he's also the Infrastructure Minister for the province of Alberta. He has agreed to meet with us today to accept our petition calling for flags to be raised. As you very likely heard, it seems as though flags will be raised federally, and we are now meeting with this member of the Legislative Assembly to ensure that the flags will also remain raised in Alberta.
Yeah, so I'm honored to represent the residents of Calgary Edgemont provincial riding, and I'm also honored to work as a Minister of Infrastructure.
Well, thank you for meeting with us today. We wanted to meet and talk to you about our Raise Our Flag campaign. We know that you are a supporter of veterans. You run an annual veterans food drive. Before we get into our campaign, would you like to comment on that a little bit?
No, I'm glad to hear Prime Minister decided to raise the flags up again. I, as a new Canadian myself, coming from a different country, I really cherish the freedoms here in Canada that we all afforded with the sacrifices, great sacrifices, the men and women in uniform made for in protecting our country, our borders, and in defense of our civil liberties. So that's why last 8 years, this year will be our 8th annual veteran food drive we do. And I'm challenging my constituents to step up, because last year we collected almost 13 metric ton non-perishable food, and we delivered to Calgary Veterans Food Bank. This year I'm challenging my constituents to step up again, and also I'm asking my new Canadian friends to volunteer for this good cause. So I'm hoping this year people will be generous, because how much ever we do for the veterans who are, because of their sacrifices, new Canadians like me have democratic rights and civil liberties and protections in Canada, which in many countries people fight for those rights, and in Canada we take it for granted, unfortunately. So whatever respect and help we can give to our veterans, there is no bigger satisfying work for me as a new Canadian, as a public representative, to give back to the veterans. There is no bigger satisfaction, work satisfaction. So I encourage all, particularly youth and all new immigrants, to say thank you.
Well, this is wonderful news. We are very happy to see, hopefully federally, certainly provincially, that the flags will be raised to honor our veterans. I want to thank you for everything you've done and for raising food in this effort for these veterans who often go through a great deal after sacrificing so much to fight for our freedoms. And finally, I would like to submit to you this petition signed by over 10,000 people across Canada, just encouraging that everyone, provincial, federally, have the courage to raise that flag on Remembrance Day and honor these veterans who have given so much.
Absolutely, and thank you for this initiative, and I want to thank everyone that worked on this petition. It worked. Now you just told me Prime Minister agreed to fly these flags full mast by Remembrance Day. That's a good news, and I hope everyone take part in representing issues like this of national importance, and also for good causes like this. public should take their civil rights seriously and work from grassroots level.
Well, I want to thank Prasad Panda for meeting with us and accepting this petition and encouraging our work on this campaign. We need more MLAs and politicians like him who go to bat for veterans. I want to thank you all.
Well, Sheila, so much to unpack there. First of all, I want to thank also Mr. Panda for coming on camera and giving that interview. He seems like a really solid guy to me.
He's a great guy.
He sure comes across that way in that interview. I also want to give praise to Adam. I think Adam really nailed it in his opening, which is the people in government who have ordered these flags to half-mast and half-staff, I should say, if we're on land, ostensibly to show solidarity with the Truth and Reconciliation movement, which has its merits, are the same government people who are flipping the bird to natives across this land when it comes to such basic necessities of life as clean drinking water. As I've said, Sheila, 21st century democracy in the Commonwealth with the largest reserves of fresh water on the planet, and this is an issue in 2021. So there's that. And the other thing too, Sheila, is I came across this the other day and it really staggered me. Do you know that in the 6+ months that these flags have been lowered to half-staff, that is a longer period of time than all the dignitaries who have been honored by the flags at half-staff for the last century in Canada. That's how long this has gone on. And I'm not saying the cause does not have its merit. Absolutely not. What I'm saying is this symbolic lowering of the flag starts to lose its meaning when it just becomes part of the wallpaper. Oh, another flag at half-mast and half-staff. Same old. And that's why we got to forget about the symbolism, because it's been going on for over 6 months, and actually do something tangible for these natives and for the Truth and Reconciliation movement. What are your thoughts?
David, I'm with you. It was just like, let's lower the flags as long as possible while actually doing nothing. They didn't do a single thing. All they did was this symbolism that at the end of the day actually disrespects, if we're keeping track, Indigenous veterans. I think the flags are going up today. I think it's today.
I thought it was tomorrow, but I'll be in Ottawa to, by the way, deliver our petition about raising the flags to the PMO's office, which shockingly is right across the street from the gorgeous National War Memorial. But I had heard it was tomorrow. But regardless, obviously, there's been blowback on this, keeping the flags down.
It doesn't even matter if it's today or tomorrow, because yesterday was the day to honor Indigenous veterans, and the flag was still down for them. And that's a shame. Because as it's been pointed out, when they were fighting alongside everybody else, they were treated as equal, and so many of them were treated as unequal when they came back home. And yesterday was the day to honor them, and the flags were still down. So what does that do to further reconciliation, Justin Trudeau? But moreover, to the point of Prasad Panda actually coming out of his office and talking to Adam and taking that petition, he gave us credit for changing the conversation about having the flags down.
Yes.
And he thanked us, and by extension, I mean, I was talking to Ezra about this on the phone last night. We're just the vehicle by which everybody else gets to be the fairy godmothers of the world. You get to do all these good things when you donate to fight the fines or fight vaccine passports or sign these petitions that create change. You at home get to do that. We get the privilege of being the vehicle by which you do it. So I thought it was great to hear Prasad Panda thank Adam for that. And I found his statements really compelling, that, he's calling upon new Canadians to take a moment to appreciate the sacrifices of the Canadians before them, who have made these sacrifices for civil liberties so that new Canadians like Prasad can come to Canada and live in peace with civil liberties. I thought that was a really touching sentiment. However, it's probably something that they would fire Don Cherry for.
Oh, 100%.
You know what I mean?
and by the way, on that note, Sheila, what disturbed me was the fact that Mr. Panda was involved with a food drive for veterans. And I find that appalling, that these are people who were willing to make the ultimate sacrifice. They come home and you need a food donation, and we know this is not a one-off. Remember a few years ago, Sheila, we learned from Camp Borden here in the GTA that at Christmas time there were food hampers being distributed, and we thought that was appalling. We reached out to our audience. They donated thousands and thousands of dollars. And then what was even more appalling, oh gosh, forgive me, Sheila, I can't remember the military charity we gave it to, because Camp Borden wouldn't take our money. You know what, folks? The administration.
And it's not our money. It's everybody else's money.
That's right.
Again, the fairy godmothers were trying to help veterans, and the military administration, who were intervened upon by Defense, Jan's office at the time, said, no, you can't take that money because it's passed through the hands of these deplorables. So we'd much rather veterans go hungry than take money that has been made possible through Rebel News. It was just gross.
It was absolutely astonishing, Sheila. I remember Efren and I going down to Bay Street in downtown Toronto. We went up to one of the towers where that military charity is being run, and the guys were so appreciative, so nice. We gave them the oversized check like, Ed McMahon does on the Publishers Clearinghouse, or he used to do, I should say. And by the time, folks, we got back to Rebel News headquarters in North Toronto, we had already received a communication that we're returning the check, and we demand, and I think there was a hint of legal action here, we demand you erase and destroy all video evidence of us receiving. How did that happen in 1 hour? A 1 hour's drive. That they were so appreciative. We did the interview, the photo op, and like you said, it was the Department of Defense, wasn't it, Sheila, that said, what? You took money from who? And by the way, it wasn't from us, like you said earlier too, Sheila. It was our viewers. I guess, are we all this big basket of deplorables? And look at what the cause was. To give food to our soldiers and their families. Unbelievable.
Think about having a government in charge that would rather have our soldiers and their families go hungry than to take money from people the government of the day doesn't like. We got the access to information documents on that story, so we saw there was direct intervention from the ministry to cut off that donation from Rebel viewers. We ultimately ended up giving it to a charity in Calgary that works with veterans. However, I mean, the fact that we had to scramble to find somebody else to help with this money, I mean, just sickening intervention on behalf of the Trudeau Liberals.
100%, and how shameful, and it's worth noting during this week of remembrance. And one last exclamation point, with the flags being lowered that way, and we had the Truth and Reconciliation holiday. Well, it was a holiday for federal workers. Justin Trudeau, as you know,
for Justin Trudeau too. Yeah, he went literally on holidays. He went surfing.
Buggers off to Tofino. You know, it's funny, Lady Menzoid yesterday, we're walking our new puppy, said, do you think if that story had broke before the election on September 20th, would that have been curtains for Justin? I said, are you kidding? How many scandals does this guy go through? Not a chance.
Added to the list of minority groups he's been disrespecting over the course of his entire lifetime.
It's unbelievable. It's unbelievable. Okay, so, this is a very interesting. Why don't we throw to this video? Because this has me very intrigued, Sheila. James O'Keefe telling the world that Veritas. Okay, then one last thing about the veterans, because this one's a whopper. An Atlantic Canada health official compares getting jabbed to the sacrifice of veterans. You got to be kidding me. Apparently
you know
not.
What? I don't know what's going on with Atlantic Canada. Again, we should just, build a wall. Let's build a wall. They've built a wall around themselves, really, with these COVID regulations. Can you throw that tweet back up? I want to read that.
Look, is that right? That's Dr. Strang. He's just an E away from Dr. Strange. Of course, that's a Marvel trademark, I suppose, but this is strange. This is actually beyond strange, Sheila. It's offensive. The idea that you're going to actually... We got to be careful. We haven't left YouTube yet. I just self-censored.
Let's just talk about the macro issue. Sorry, can we just throw that up again? Because people should hear these words. Dr. Robert Strang, Nova Scotia's Chief Medical Officer of Health, compares vaccination to the tremendous sacrifices previous generations have made and says, all we're asking for you is to get a proven, safe, and effective vaccine. That's Dr. Robert Strang doubling up on his poppies while doubling down on authoritarianism. What is wrong with these people? He's got a poppy tie. He's got a poppy on his shirt. Knock that poppy right off of you, because I'm pretty sure that our veterans didn't go to war so that you could lock people in their homes and forcibly inject them with something under the threat of losing their job, because that's what this comes down to. In fact, many of them liberated concentration camps wherein medical experimentation was happening to people against their will. But these crazy people in Canada right now, these people in power, they've never actually fought like a real hard battle against anything in their lives. They are the most comfortable and well-kept people in the entire country. And that's why it's stolen valor, really is what it is when you think about it. They are contributing, locking other people in their home and making them lose their jobs with, saving lives, running into a burning building and carrying out the 3 kids and a cat on your head. And look at me, I'm a hero. They see themselves as heroes. And that's why they don't understand why what they're saying is just so crazy and out of touch, because they live in this state of fear, and they are just wearing somebody else's heroism now as their cloak.
Oh, 100%, Sheila. And I mean, geez, when he was saying, all we are asking you is to get these double jobs, I almost thought he was going to break into the John Lennon, all we are saying is give peace a chance, which is the most annoying lyric, I think, in pop music history, because the idea that was lost on John Lennon is that sometimes what you need for peace is peace through strength, right? Not through appeasement. We saw how that worked out in the 1930s with Adolf Hitler and Europe. So, that is really something. You're right. What is it about the east coast of Canada? I don't, do you get the feeling, Sheila, that if there was continental drift and the Atlantic Canadian provinces sailed off and became part of Australia, they'd be happy with that regime there, right? When it comes to COVID protocol.
I'm kidding. There's good people there. Don't write me letters. We'll airlift you out and just set sail, shove it into the ocean, and where it lands, maybe Australia, who knows. Likewise with Vancouver, there's some good people there. Let's just save them. But if it became part of California, would anybody there even notice?
Well, they would notice the accent, that's for sure. But I want to say this about Atlantic Canada. The people there, the adults, I should say, are the salt of the earth. I love the people there. And I say this because if anyone should hold a grudge, ladies and gentlemen, it's yours truly. Grade 8 and grade 9, I was at McDonald Drive junior high school in St. John's, Newfoundland. And the way it went is people would come up to me and go, you talk funny, which is to say I pronounce boy as boy and not by. And then they would say, where are you from? And I would say Toronto. And then I heard a line, I'd never heard this term in my life until I moved there. They would go, ooh, Mainlander. And I would get a punch in the stomach or gum in the hair. And yeah, listen, look, don't blame Toronto. It's Ottawa that is the source of your problems. At the time, I think the big issue was the cod fishing moratorium. I had nothing to do with that. So I was mercilessly bullied for a good year and a half in St. John's. But when I went back there on a subsequent visit as an adult and wasn't getting beaten up by other Newfoundlanders, what nice people. So there you go. I don't hold grudges, Sheila.
Well, and I'm from Alberta, so many of the people here are from the Maritimes. They came out here for work.
That's
so like
true.
we have, you know how a lot of places have like an Asian food section of the grocery store and a Mexican food section of the grocery store? We have those plus the Atlantic Canada section of the grocery store where you have like these big enormous logs of bologna and salt cod and the weird pops that they drink. They have those weird flavors like birch beer and pineapple.
That's right, birch beer.
Yeah, so we have that section of the grocery store in Fort Saskatchewan. So I tease about wanting to shove Atlantic Canada into the ocean and just see where it lands because, you know, we know they can take a joke. I had something I was going to say there, but I forget.
At the Newfoundland shop, maybe you were going to pick up a seal flipper pie, perhaps. We should move on.
I would eat that. I would eat that just to make a lefty mad, for sure. I'd also eat those pandas. I regret we didn't eat those pandas. We just sent them back to China. We should have eaten them.
Well, one of those species is on the endangered species list, you know, so we got to be a little more selective with what we eat. Yeah, seals, no problem. I mean, there's what, 6.5 million harp and hood seals in Atlantic Canada.
Yep.
So there's no, and you know, and that's one of the things I learned being in Newfoundland is the bad rap the seal hunt received from the elites of the day, Sheila. Why is there all this attention on a species that is not on the endangered list? In fact, there's overpopulation because the cod stocks were down. That's their primary source of food. And yet, when you look at other endangered species, and I remember the day my research brought me to the Asiatic wild ass. That was an endangered species. I wonder if that's still around. But why the different? Well, I'll tell you, a harp seal pup. Have you ever seen anything cuter in your life than that? So it's optics. As for the Asiatic wild ass, that's one ugly donkey. Let me tell you, Sheila. So yeah. Let the Asiatic wild ass die off. We can't sell little fluffy toys to do fundraising for that, but the harp seals, man, will really get the tissues going when people see what's getting killed out on the ice floes. But the science didn't add up. So, anyways, that's all I have to say about endangered species. Now, speaking of endangered species, well, I don't know if he's endangered, but James O'Keefe is being investigated.
Journalism, real journalism, the endangered species.
And the huge question is, why is the FBI involved? Well, let's run some video, and maybe this is from last night, folks, so it's fresh. Last Friday, rather, so it is. It's still within the best before date.
It's newish.
I put myself at great risk because on November 4th, Project Veritas came under attack. I woke to the news that apartments and homes of Project Veritas journalists, or former journalists, had been raided by FBI agents. It appears the Southern District of New York now has journalists in their sights for the supposed crime of doing their jobs lawfully and honestly, or at least this journalist. I had to think long and hard before making this statement. It's a decision that only I can make. They don't want me to defend myself and immediately tried to silence me. That's why the cover letter to the grand jury subpoena we received contains this language. Quote, "The government hereby requests that you voluntarily refrain from disclosing the existence of the subpoena to any third party. While you are under no obligation to comply with our request, we are requesting you not to make any disclosure in order to preserve the confidentiality of the investigation and because the disclosure of the existence of this investigation might interfere with and impede the investigation." Unquote. But while the Department of Justice requested us to not disclose the existence of the subpoena, something very unusual happened. Within an hour of one of our reporters' homes being secretly raided by the FBI, the New York Times, who we are currently suing for defamation, contacted the Project Veritas reporter to ask for comment. We do not know how the New York Times was aware of the execution of a search warrant at our reporter's home or the subject matter of the search warrant, as a grand jury investigation is secret. The FBI took materials of current former Project Veritas journalists, despite the fact that our legal team previously contacted the Department of Justice and voluntarily conveyed unassailable facts that demonstrate Project Veritas's lack of involvement in criminal activity and or criminal intent. Like any reporter, we regularly deal with the receipt of source information and take steps to verify its authenticity, legality, and newsworthiness. Our efforts were the stuff of responsible, ethical journalism, and we are in no doubt that Project Veritas acted properly at each and every step. However, it appears journalism itself may now be on trial. Late last year, we were approached by tipsters claiming they had a copy of Ashley Biden's diary. We had never met or heard of the tipsters. The tipsters indicated the diary had been abandoned in a room in which Ms. Biden stayed at the time, and in which the tipsters stayed in temporarily after Ms. Biden departed the room. The tipsters indicated that the diary included explosive allegations against then-candidate Joe Biden. The tipsters indicated that they were negotiating with a different media outlet for the payment of monies for the diary. The tipsters were represented by attorneys who handled the negotiations with Project Veritas. We investigated the claims provided to us, as journalists do. We took steps to corroborate the authenticity of the diary. At the end of the day, we made the ethical decision that because, in part, we could not determine if the diary was real, if the diary in fact belonged to Ashley Biden, or if the contents of the diary occurred, we could not publish the diary and any part thereof. We attempted to return the diary to an attorney representing Ms. Biden, but that attorney refused to authenticate it. Project Veritas gave the diary to law enforcement to ensure it could be returned to its rightful owner. We never published it. Now, Ms. Biden's father's Department of Justice, specifically the United States Attorney's Office for the Southern District of New York, appears to be investigating the situation, claiming the diary was stolen. We don't know if it was, but it begs the question: in what world is the alleged theft of a diary investigated by the president's FBI and his Department of Justice? A diary. This federal investigation smacks of politics. Project Veritas never threatened or engaged in any illegal conduct. Should the Southern District of New York try to take away our First Amendment rights and uncover and publish newsworthy stories without government intimidation, be assured Project Veritas will not back down. Nothing stops at Project Veritas. Let me be clear. Our mission is to serve the public's right to know by illuminating, revealing, exposing information others wish to hide for the wrong reasons. To quote Lord Acton, we believe everything kept in secret degenerates. We don't mislead or conceal. We investigate facts and potential newsworthy information. Sometimes, as was the case here, after we investigate, we decide not to publish a news story. But Project Veritas will run from nothing, and we will hide from nothing. We exist for the very purpose of discovering and revealing the truth, and hope to make the world a more transparent place. Now, this is not the first time we have been attacked, and it will not be the last. We know why. We've investigated powerful people, and in many ways, we are the very tip of the spear. But we never break the law. In fact, one of our ethical rules is to act as if there are 12 jurors on our shoulders all the time. And that truth, and the truth, will vindicate us. When the FBI in the Southern District of New York seize reporters' notebooks, it is not just an attack on Project Veritas. It is an attack on every American and our sacred right to free speech and a free press. The First Amendment is first for a reason. It guarantees all the other rights that follow, because it's all about accountability. Without accountability, freedom itself is an illusion. So the great question is this an indicator in the direction that America is going? We've gone far beyond the point of partisan politics in this country. They ask us to focus on our divisions. They don't ask us to focus on the things which unite us. What unites us is so much more powerful than what divides us. The First Amendment doesn't just matter to people on one side, it matters to people on all sides. That is why I'm calling on all Americans, and especially all journalists, to stand with us for the right to free speech and the free press, and to send a message that the politics of fear will not prevail in the United States of America.
Oh, good luck with that last ask about getting journalists to stand with the Project Veritas.
Sure.
And by the way, Sheila, I love James
his optimism.
O'Keefe. Oh,
I
yeah,
love his optimism there, but he ain't going to get what he's asking for. Nope.
Yeah, that's a bit of a stretch goal, as Premier Kathleen Wynne used to say. But here's the story as I understand it, Sheila. These tipsters stayed in a hotel room that was previously occupied by Ashley Biden. She left her diary behind, allegedly. They found it. They went to Project Veritas. They did not run the information, and part of the reason, as Mr. O'Keefe said, is we couldn't verify if this was fake or not. And that's a good reason not to run something, because the haters of Project Veritas, they would like nothing better than to punk them. Yeah, like look how gullible and stupid they are. How can they have any credibility? We said this was an Ashley Biden diary, and they went for it hook, line, and stinker. Instead, what they did, in addition to not publishing it, they reached out to local law enforcement. They did everything ethical and by the book. And the huge question, as Mr. O'Keefe said, is how is this even remotely an FBI case? Where was the crime?
Well, that's the thing. They even tried to give it back to the lawyers involved, like Ashley Biden's lawyer, and they wouldn't take it. They wouldn't authenticate it. They wouldn't take it. The only reason the FBI should be involved is if there are things in that diary, and I've seen some screenshots, and I don't want to say that I verified them or what, but they should be investigating whether or not the things within that diary actually happened, because that is the actual crime, not how Project Veritas came to be in receipt of this. The FBI, instead of chasing down reporters and trying to charge reporters with crimes, should be taking that diary and trying to authenticate it, because if it is authentic, it is evidence of some ugly stuff. And that should be where the FBI is investigating, not on the journalism side. And just think about this for a second. The journalists who cried every time that Trump was mean to Jim Acosta, but continued to call on him every day, by the way. They're completely silent on this issue. They lost their mind over a fake P dossier. It was in the news forever. They wanted to impeach Trump, and it was all fake, and people are now being charged and hopefully going to jail for it. They lost their mind, and yet this is what Project Veritas is dealing with right now, and all the free speech defenders, and we're definitely not what Trump calls us, and that's the enemy of the people. They are behaving like the enemy of the people right now. They are being that which Trump said they were.
And, you know, Sheila, it should be noted the New York Times, they're alleging that this diary is indeed authentic, which begs the question, what is it with the Biden kids, Hunter with his laptop, Ashley with her diary? Why are they leaving behind sensitive information in public? It's baffling to me.
These are cries for help. That's what I think. I had given some thought to this the other day. Somebody who leaves behind a laptop evidencing their drug addiction is probably looking for someone to help them with their drug addiction. They just don't know how to come forward. Now, that laptop had evidence of all kinds of other things on there, obviously. But is it a cry for help? Is leaving behind this diary a cry for help? Because it says things that it would be very difficult for Ashley Biden, if this is true, to be able to say about her dad and her family. But is maybe you leave behind the diary as a breadcrumb, and hopefully somebody else finds it and tells on your family, because you just can't.
Yeah, and it was very hard for me to read as I was scrolling down, but I saw some line where she was questioning, I think the line was I molested? I think so. I don't know who was doing the molesting, but that's disturbing, isn't it, Sheila?
Yeah. She says, was I molested? I think so. I can't remember specifics. Well, that's the case with so many people. But I do remember trauma. She remembers being somewhat sexualized alongside a person named Caroline The author then wrote that she remembers showers with my dad that were probably not appropriate. So, I mean, if this is hers and she left it behind, call me a conspiracy theorist, but I don't think it was an accident. It was her way of getting the information out, and then she can say it was an accident or whatever.
Well, that is a fascinating theory, and I'm not going to dismiss it for sure. It could be true. And evidently they raided, was it Mr. Producer, James O'Keefe's house as well? Okay, why don't we just do a look at the follow-up story for that one, if we have it. Oh, there we go.
I acknowledge that, but I woke up to a pre-dawn raid, banging on my door. I went to the door to answer the door, and there were 10 FBI agents with a battering ram, white blinding lights. They turned me around, handcuffed me, and threw me against the hallway. I was partially clothed in front of my neighbors. They confiscated my phone. They raided my apartment. On my phone were many of my reporters' notes, a lot of my sources unrelated to this story, and a lot of confidential donor information to our news organization, Sean. So I've heard the phrase, the process is the punishment. I didn't really understand what that meant until this weekend. And Sean, I wouldn't wish this on any journalist. They've crossed the bridge here. If they can do this to me, these are about certain principles that are so fundamental, our First Amendment in this country. I'm calling upon all journalists to take a stand against this. A source comes to us with information. I don't even decide to publish it. If they can do this to me, if they can do this to this journalist and raid my home and take my reporter notes, they'll do it to any journalist. This is about something very fundamental in this country. I don't know what direction this country is going in, but journalists everywhere have to rise up, because we broke no laws here. They could do it to me, they'll do it to anybody. Well, Sean.
Sheila, this sounds like one hell of a lawsuit that Mr. O'Keefe can pursue, especially given that, unlike us, he does live in the land of the First Amendment. But you know, it's funny, he's so gracious. He said that this is not this kind of intimidation, this kind of harassment and coercion, this isn't something he would wish on any journalist. Do you think, Sheila, the journalists at the New York Slimes and the Washington Compost, as our friend Mark Levin likes to call them, do you think they are simpatico with that thought that they shouldn't be harassing Mr. O'Keefe? Well, the proof is in the proverbial pudding, isn't it? I don't see any front page headline saying enough, like as a defense to Project Veritas and Mr. O'Keefe. No, they're pounding out these stories with their pom-poms on. It's amazing they're still able to type, "Go FBI, go, go, go." What bloody hypocrites.
There is, if this is authentic, evidence that the President of the United States engaged in inappropriate actions with his daughter. And again, this is alleged. It hasn't been confirmed. Don't sue me, Joe Biden. But that is something that the FBI should actually be confirming. They shouldn't be banging on the door of the journalist who ended up in receipt of it. And secondarily, this acts as a signal boost to all the other journalists that are left in the mainstream media that might have a smidgen of journalistic ethics yet, that if you end up in receipt of information that makes the administration look bad, sure as hell we're sending the FBI after you, so you better kill this story. And we've seen this time and time again, where mainstream media journalists end up with stories that ultimately end up being broken by conservative media because their higher ups say kill this story. Was it Epstein? He ended up with Epstein, and they said kill this story, and they did. And so this is not anything new, but this is the first time I think we've seen the FBI sent after journalists. So they're taking it up another notch. This is persecution of journalists that are speaking truth to power and want to bring out of darkness the misdeeds alleged of the president. Same ones who published the P dossier.
Incredible. Well, Sheila, we're already 3 minutes into overtime here, and we haven't read a single chat. I assume we might have some, so shall you get to the...
Yes.
But Mr. Producer wants us to talk about what's happening on the Polish border. Well, 2,000 migrants from the Middle East are at the border. That's resulted in a crisis. Wouldn't be a crisis in the United States. They'd welcome them in. And then if you want to get to a northern state, hey, no problem. We'll put you on a plane and fly you there in the wee hours of the morning. So hopefully no one can witness that. But listen, as I'm not anti-immigration, Sheila. I don't think you are either. But there is a process. It means standing in line. It means getting vetted. It means making sure you are who you say you are. And let's be serious, if you're coming from a region which is a bad neighborhood in the world when it comes to terrorism, and I'm not saying everybody from the Middle East is a terrorist, of course, but you don't want people with a nefarious agenda to be a refugee, a pretend refugee, and get into a country and do some damage. So as far as I'm concerned, Sheila, I don't care what country you are, if you can't protect border sovereignty, then you are not much of a country at all. And there's some of the images we're seeing here. And let's go to the letter from the president to see what he has to say about, well, which is effectively an invasion. Can you read that, Sheila?
Yes. So it says Belarus must stop putting people's lives at risk. The instrumentalization of migrants for political purposes by Belarus is unacceptable. That's a great thing to point out, that Belarus is actually using these vulnerable migrants.
Yep.
The Belarusian authorities must understand that pressuring the European Union in this way through a cynical instrumentalization of migrants will not help them succeed in their purposes. I've spoken to Polish Prime Minister Mateusz, Morawiecki, sorry, I'm going to get letters from my Eastern European friends. Lithuanian Prime Minister, God help me, and the Latvian Prime Minister also. To express the EU's solidarity and discuss with them the measures the EU can take to support them in their efforts to deal with the crisis. I'm calling on member states to finally approve the extended sanctions regime on the Belarusian authorities responsible for this hybrid attack. The Vice President, in coordination with the High Representative Vice President Borrell, will travel in the coming days to the main countries of origin and transit to ensure that they act to prevent their own nationals from falling into the trap set by the Belarusian authorities. The EU will in particular explore how to sanction, including through blacklisting third country airlines that are active in human trafficking. Okay, this is great. Finally, the Commission will explore with the UN and its specialized agencies how to prevent a humanitarian crisis from unfolding and ensure that migrants can be safely returned to their country of origin with the support of their national authorities. So it looks like this migrant crisis is being weaponized against the EU by Belarusian authorities, and Poland is the innocent victim in all of this, because Poland doesn't really like the EU nor Belarus, but they are dealing with the problem at their border. And one thing I will tell you about having gone to Poland is they are fierce about protecting their culture. They have protected their culture through communism, through the Soviets trying to crush it, through the Nazis trying to crush it. Their culture has survived and endured, and they are not going to put up with this. I remember seeing images of Polish Catholics going to the borders all across the country and praying the rosary to protect their borders from outside invaders. And I should also note this, because again, I've seen this firsthand. Eastern Europe is not against immigration. In fact, one of the places that would take our the refugees that we were working with in northern Iraq was Eastern Europe, Czech Republic primarily. And so but the refugees had to be vetted, they had to be sponsored, so that they could hit the ground running and become a part of the culture, that there was no real culture shock for them and that they had support when they got there. The problem is these waves of migrants that are marching in from the Middle East, we don't know if they are Taliban members, because Afghanistan is in the hands of the Taliban now, but also when so many of the cities fell to ISIS, ISIS seized the document making machines to make fake passports. So you don't really know what you're dealing with, and you need to sit down and you need to properly vet these people. And I've seen it happening firsthand. I know it can be done. That's what the Polish government wants. If you are a real migrant, if you are a real immigrant, and you mean us no harm, please do it the right way. That's all.
And you know what, Sheila? I'm having deja vu here because I'm looking at the images, and if this is really a humanitarian crisis, then why is the lion's share of these migrants young males? And this is what, if you recall, back in October of 2018, super producer Efren and I went down to Mexico to look at that huge caravan, tens and tens of thousands of people coming up from South Central America, going through Mexico. And one of the biggest media lies of all, Sheila, was, and our very own fake news factory, the CBC, reported this, that about 50% of the migrants were children. What a despicable lie. I'm going to go out on a limb here and say maybe 1%. So somehow they overestimated by 49%. But I'm telling you, the lion's share were young males. And when they went through Mexico, and this is the other question I have with these migrants. By the way, look at this carbon. I wonder where Greta Thunberg stands on this issue. That looks.
Is the Biden administration watching this? Look at all those cops and border guards lined up. It can be done. You can defend your border.
No,
but it can be done, Biden administration. Take a look.
But Sheila, there has to be political will, and I think what we see with the Biden administration is allowing this to literally change the demographics of America. And remember, every 4 years, all we ask is you vote Democrat. By the way, not all migrants, they're not really keen on Cubans coming illegally into the United States because Cubans tend to vote Republican. It's unbelievable. But the thing is, what we witnessed in Mexico, these migrants were accommodated, they were put up, they were given food donations, et cetera, et cetera. But the key thing is, Sheila, Mexico was never the final destination. All these Mexican towns and villages knew these were just passing through. Let's accommodate them. Let's placate them because they're ultimately going to the United States of America. Didn't work out for them that because there was a actual president with a backbone in power called Mr. Trump. But I'm wondering with these migrants, what do you think is the final destination? I don't know why you'd want to, I would imagine, I'm not saying this to knock Poland, but I think there's probably more generous social assistance packages in Western European nations. Is that what this is about?
Oh, yeah, they're just going to march right through Poland, probably. Yeah. But Poland, as you can see, they're the front line defending the rest of Europe, as is apparently always the case throughout history. I think they're probably headed to the UK, Germany, France, where there are enormous social programs for migrants, illegal or otherwise. But this is always the case throughout the history of humanity. Yeah. Poland is the front line in defense of the rest of Europe and never gets credit for it.
No, you make
Polish troops praying as they prepare to defend the border. Yep.
You make a great point. There were still Poles alive who remember 1939 when some other unwanted guests, namely the Nazis, came marching into Poland. So whether it's a organized army or it is these migrants, same difference to me, Sheila. We're protecting the border. And if the world, if the liberals out there poo-poo Poland and other nations like Hungary, they also defend their borders, Sheila. Well, too bad. This is our problem, not yours. And you can do all the virtue signaling you like from your comfy couch. We have a serious issue, as well they should, with these undocumented people trying to get into that country uninvited.
Let us remember that it was a Polish pope on Polish soil that was controlled by the Soviets that led to the end of communism in the Soviet Union as we knew it. He went to Poland, returned to his beloved homeland, and called the Soviets out for their evil atheism and controlling of so much of Eastern Europe. He went there, was unafraid, and did it, and that sparked the solidarity movement, and that's what ended Soviet communism in the rest of Eastern Europe. Poland has always been the front line. They see things and do things before the rest of Europe ever even figures out what the battle is. So
100%.
Good on them.
Exactly.
Okay, we should get to these chats because Lord, goodness me, it's 11:14 here in Alberta. So let's get to these because I'm sure our producer and you, David, you have other things you need to do. We have.
Yeah, and that other thing I have to do, Sheila, is hop in my car and go to Ottawa and deliver those petitions. How do you like that?
I hope you brought an extension cord. Okay.
You know that's not how it works.
Do I? History Club World, David. You should see if any Albertan store has that whiskey. I looked for David, actually, and suggest it to Sheila and Adam as a Christmas gift. Oh, we're getting David a Christmas gift now? Okay.
Yeah, either a bottle of Glenfarclas 105, or if you win the lottery, at least 10 million, the performance model Batmobile replica from Fiberglass Freaks in Indiana. Thank you in advance, folks.
You're getting a raptor. Sheila and David should write a book about your times together. Yeah, we could. Rebels should start a lottery instead of cash, do exclusive stuff from your store and archives. That's interesting. We should bring back once a month shirts that used to be in the store for like a limited time, like this shirt or old images or whatever. I was going through my t-shirts because the t-shirt drawer gets a little full sometimes, and I was like, aw, look at all these fun early Rebel shirts. Vintage ones. I put them up in my studio here.
Are any of them even quasi-collectible yet?
They are in my heart.
Sneak into the storeroom and,
The Ezra bobbleheads are definitely collectable.
Boy, did I ever fill up my pickup truck several times over with Ezra's lovely wife moving those out of the storage unit in downtown Toronto.
Okie doke. Rebecca Henderson says, David, I'm with Sheila. I never checked the price of the card.
No.
That's just weird. It is weird.
No. Rebecca, I think you're a wonderful lady, but I think you're telling a little white lie here. I mean, even, unconsciously, you're looking at that price tag. You probably don't even realize you're doing it. Yes, of course. I'm tired of arguing this. You virtue signalers when it comes to greeting cards. It's outrageous.
You are projecting. You think we are just as cheap as you are about this sort of stuff? And so you need to feel some camaraderie in your cheapness, and I'm just not there. I'm cheap about so many other things, for sure, but just not this.
Oh, and can I just say something else, Sheila, on this file? One of the dear, dear reasons I so love Dollarama is the fact that when you buy their gift cards and they're all $1, some of them are printed on the back, $2.50, $3.75, $4.50.
Oh, wow.
Oh, that's like winning the lottery for me. I'm paying $1, but Lady Menzoid actually thinks I dropped $4.50 plus tax on this piece of cardboard.
Goodness.
I love it.
Your poor wife. That poor woman. My husband is super cheap, but at least he's completely upfront about it. Like, he doesn't. I know. That's why, even in my phone, his nickname is Rusty Junk. I never use his real name on camera or whatever. But he is, besides the fact that he's got red hair, but it's because his wallet is like rusty and it squeaks when he opens it. rusted clothes.
Well, you're in oil country. Put a little oil like the Tin Men in The Wizard of Oz and get that wallet flapping again.
The thing is, he and I both grew up kind of poor, like him even worse than me. And so that when you're living with like boom and bust oil patch, it's kind of good to have that mentality, because some people who are like new to oil patch money, that you become like a 5-minute millionaire and you're just like financed to the max. Between the two of us with our like cheapness, we do okay. You know, like we're always planning for a rainy day. Him though, he's planning for like the flood. So
yeah, those overnight millionaires, those are the kind of guys that'll go to like a Ruth's Chris steakhouse or a Morton's, and when their beautiful steak comes to them, they're still putting ketchup on it, right?
You know what though? I again, no judgment. I'm around like, blue-collar rich people all the time.
But you're not supposed to do that to beautiful meat. That's what I'm trying to say.
We've got History Club World. My dream car would be a Second World War tank, preferably one of the ones that was floated onto the beaches of Normandy. David, you should start covering more car stuff for Rebel. AMC Rebel seems like the perfect car for special events. Follow History Club World on Instagram.
Isn't it the truth? But here's my question, sir. How many of those AMC Rebels are literally still on the road, even in a collectible kind of environment? I mean, most of those AMC products, I assume, Sheila, have rusted back into the ground. They just don't exist anymore, right?
You can find some ones in some pretty decent shape out here in Alberta, because we don't. You guys are just so salty out there and humid, and it's pretty dry here, so things survive the rust a little better out here. So, you know, chances are better that you will find something in better condition out here in Alberta.
Well, I remember reading Lee Iacocca's biography when he was the CEO of Chrysler, turning it around, and he was talking about how in the late 70s, maybe he was saying this by way of exaggeration, there were literally new Chryslers rusting in the dealership, inside the dealership showrooms.
Oh, I believe it.
Oh, well, they don't make them like they used to.
I sideswiped the fire pit, and my scrape took like 2 weeks or 2 years to rust because it's so dry out here.
Wow.
Long story about how that happened. But anyway, Fraser McBurney says, talking of great Scotch, I have in my collection a 21-year-old bottle of Chivas Royal Salute Scotch whiskey that I bought in 1996 to keep for a special occasion. I'm still waiting for that special occasion. Maybe if we ever get a Conservative government in power, crack that bottle of Scotch.
How about a visit from me? Is that a special occasion enough for you? Maybe
Fraser's
not.
in Hamilton every weekend. You could just go sit in the park with a brown paper bag and drink your whiskey.
Oh, can you imagine bylaw with all their gender pronouns and their telephoto lenses? You know I'm going to get a ticket emailed to me for $350.
We're allowed to drink in the parks here. Are you guys not allowed to drink in the parks?
Of course not. Are you crazy?
Oh. Yeah, we can drink in Edmonton City Parks, which is strange because, you know, Edmonton is so uptight about everything. But yeah, we can drink in the parks there.
You know, I'm happy to hear that, because if your drink gets cold, you can go over to one of those solar panels and warm it up, I guess. Yeah.
To warm it up, their drink. David, what do you think we're drinking in the park? Warm my beer up. Mick 3CA, $1. Join Fraser and the gang at Hamilton City Hall Sundays at noon. Bring your whiskey, Fraser, as they try to end tyranny. Signs protesting the COVID narrative are welcome. There may be prizes, but those not attending will win nothing. Yes, FOMO, right? Mick 3CA also gives us $1. Join Fraser and the gang. Okay, we just did this one. Whatever happened to Don Cherry? He got the boot in 2019, and I haven't heard anything about him in a long time. He has a podcast.
He does.
Plus, Rebel News should try to hire him. I don't know. We can't afford him to be your head of sports news and commentary. Get a prick from a needle or a shot by a bunch of guns. Hard to tell. Follow history.
Well, that would be my dream co-worker. I might even like that even more than I like working with you, Sheila. Don Cherry, what a legend. But you know what? He's in, the later years of his life. And why do you need all that CBC and TSN woke BS? He's doing a podcast from his home with his son, talks what he wants to talk about. He's got no puppet masters.
Exactly.
No woke, warriors screaming at everything he says. And I think he's just enjoying himself. So good on Don.
Yeah, that's right. He let him enjoy his golden years free of the CBC and the cancel culture mob. Billy Howard gives us $2 and says, shocking that Leslyn Lewis was left out of the Conservative Party shadow cabinet this morning. Is it shocking, though? Is it really? Because she spoke out against the civil liberties infractions happening with regard to vax mandates in the workplace and the vax passport. So she's out of step with the failed leader of the party. So out she goes. Apparently the sun can only shine on one over there.
Sheila, it's sort of been whispered in the last several hours that Aaron O'Toole might be out himself within 2 weeks. Do you believe these rumors, or is this just wishful thinking?
I don't know why he didn't resign, do the Harper-esque thing, say that you've rejected my vision for the party, and step down right after the election so that the party could reinvigorate itself, figure out where it's going, take the temperature of the people who are conservative but didn't vote for them and say, what did we do wrong? But they've done none of that. Literally none. And we've got this lame duck leader of the party doing nothing and basically carving out the social conservative part of the party. Yeah. They just don't want the social conservatives there, but they want you to vote for them.
But Sheila, it's more than Aaron O'Toole. When he leaves, could he please take that wimpy woke war room with him? Those soy boy deluxes.
Corey Hahn's.
These 20-somethings that, hey, man, let's just move a little left and get Toronto, Ottawa, Montreal on board, man.
Yeah, that was like a dream, guys.
Yeah, that's part of the problem.
Great
because
strategy.
Yeah, strategy, and we need not only a new leader, we need a new war room with that party, or it's going to be a disaster, because regardless of who it is, if those guys are there and you have, I would call Aaron O'Toole spineless, but I don't want to be insulting to the jellyfish community. But if you have these woke kids there mandating where this party is going to go, I guarantee you, Sheila, they've learned nothing in the last 2 elections, and when the next one is called, perhaps within 2 years, that's typically the best before life of a minority parliament in Canada, this party will move further left. I guarantee you. We need wholesale change there.
Yeah, they have to be something more than vote for us and not the PPC. After we've bashed you for a year or 2 years, but definitely give us your vote because we're not Justin Trudeau. That's not good enough. And some of these woke war room failures, they were around in the Harper years, but they were never in charge of anything. They were drones, and Harper kept them as drones and worker bees because he knew. And now we're seeing what happens when you put, as I've called them in the past, these weaponized nerds in charge of stuff. They don't understand what the real issues are for the people. Sometimes they look at polling data and they're like, yep, that's what they care about in Toronto. But in the meantime, they alienate everybody else and simultaneously lose Toronto. So,
and Sheila, given where you live, this must be so galling for Western Canadians that you are continually taken for granted when it comes to this Conservative Party. They're in the bag, or most of them are anyways. Let's concentrate on a bridge too far, quite frankly. If you think the Laurentian elites are ever going to buy what you're selling, you're dreaming in Technicolor.
Well, that's the thing. You see in Alberta, the massive shift. I mean, Conservatives are still winning in Alberta, but just the shift from winning with 80% of the vote to winning with 55 or 60% of the vote, because those votes are moving over to the PPC. And there will come a time, if that trend continues, that the Liberals just going to come right up the middle. And, the Conservative Party only has itself to blame for that. Okay, let's keep going. Kevin Tennant gives us $1. Lottery cars for him, retro worldwide Firebird. For her, the Dodge TRX. And the third car, the Vector.
Oh, nice. But which model year of the Firebird? I got into an argument with Lincoln. He saw an 80s edition Firebird when we were coming back from Nathan Phillips Square. And he went, oh, my dream car. And I went, that might be the
version?
least. What?
The mullet version of the car?
Yeah, that might be the least desirable Firebird / Camaro ever produced. So can you please send another chat clarifying the year you're choosing? Thank you.
You know, I experienced this the other day with my daughter in the car, and Nirvana came on the radio. I was listening to like Sirius XM, and I had wandered away from my stable home of outlaw country, and I was listening to something else. And Nirvana comes on the radio, and my daughter goes, Mom, can you turn off these oldies and go back to listen to your country oldies? And I was like, Nirvana's not oldies? I was like, a knife in my heart.
But, you know, that's
Terrible.
a good question, Sheila. You called Don Cherry, he's in his golden years. What medal would describe our years that we're going through right now?
What do you mean our years? I'm brass. You're the generation above me. Whatever
How
that
dare
is.
you? You've been very cheeky and feisty today, I must say. Aquaskies 3636 says psychopathic Strang. Read about the dark triad personality, recently a form of narcissism. Describes these crazed Captain Blighs. It usually manifests itself in serial killers, the dark triad. Sounds like Dr. Fauci, although he's more into killing dogs by having them eaten alive by bugs. But anyway.
Okay, I just got a bug in my ears saying we have to be careful with this next one. Again, I'm just reading it. I make no bones about what we're saying here. And did we ever sign off of YouTube?
Yeah.
I guess not.
We didn't.
Did we?
Yikes. Scooby-Doo, where are you?
I don't think we talked about anything. We didn't question the science. So maybe we should sign off of YouTube before we finish these, or should we just... Yeah, I just don't want to nuke us. I always thought it would be David.
We'll just have a little refreshment break.
Down.
It's water, not bug.